let's suppose you're having a staff meeting or a staff retreat, and your member wants to review, I'll just stay with healthcare, the healthcare legislation. And what kinds of issues should we be thinking about as we think about framing up, say, a health savings account initiative? You can ask a CBO analyst to come to your office and to talk to you about the things that they think about when they think about healthcare. Why would you want to do that? Well, if you're going to make a request to CBO to do a healthcare package, you should know how they think. You should know the constraints, the rules, the little techniques that they have. It was common when I was with the Senate Budget Committee for us to have big briefings for all the members, all the staff who wanted the briefing in the Senate, both parties. And so the CBO would come and talk to us about how they did trade, or what did they think about when they are doing a scoring of a Defense Authorization Act? What are the inputs that they are going to use to come up with a recommendation or a set of numbers? So that kind of interaction, which the Hill staff woefully underutilizes, should be utilized by you, because they are the think tank for the Hill. So if I could go to the next slide. This is a weird rendering of, actually I did this last night while I was in another meeting. I didn't paint this or anything of that nature. I'm utterly unable to do it. But I asked ChatGPT to take my flowchart and render it into a nice looking document, and this is what it came up with. Isn't that amazing? So let me just walk you through this and in a sense give you some advice on how to be effective with CBO, and we'll be coming back to this theme repeatedly in the next 2 sessions. So it starts with that bright idea that Doug talked about. Your member has a bright idea. You go back and you're talking to dairy farmers, and the dairy farmers say, well, we need this, we need that. And you come back, okay, next staff meeting, I want you to write this up. Put this in a letter, get this to CBO. All right, terrifying moment, right? Because what do I do? How do I do that? You turn to a lobbyist, or you turn to some expert and have them do it, but you need to be kind of overseeing that process. So it really starts with that loop to the right of bright idea. It would be to your left, right? All right, to your left. The interaction, member engagement, the member loop. This is really important. Before you write the letter, put down the bullet points, the basic description, the basic elements. Make sure iterate back to your boss. Okay, is this what you're thinking about? Of course you would do that anyway. But build into that loop someone from CBO. Who would you call? Who would you call at CBO? 3 names, right? You would call the director, Phil Schwagel, you would call Hadley, or you would call Jeffrey Kling, and you would say to them, they'll be shocked because they don't do this very much, but they're supposed to do it for you. We'd like to have someone come to our office and talk to us about dairy farming, about milk boards. And so after a bit, you'd probably get someone to show up at your office. You do this before you write the letter, because CBO is going to sit down with you and say, now here's how you should write the letter. They won't actually say that, but you will hear them say, this is important to us. What time period? Is it fiscal year or calendar year? Okay? There's 2 different years out there that CBO works with, a calendar year and a fiscal year. Very, very different. It's an important consideration. If you don't ask those questions while you are thinking about writing the letter, they will ask those questions of you after they receive the letter, and your letter response will be delayed until they get clarity. So one of the things that you really want to have is a rapid response, right? You want something to really occur quickly, because your boss is going to ask you every Monday morning, where are we on the dairy thing? You know, the dairy thing. I can't go back home without the dairy thing being done. So this loop right there is a very important loop. It's a consultation loop. It is how to use CBO effectively. Now, if you have trouble with CBO and they say, we won't give you the time of the day, Fiscal Lab will do that for you. So we'll come in and we will be a part of that loop. We do all of our work confidentially. If you go to our website, you won't see a lot of publications, but we're very, very busy. Over 100 bills have now been scored just in the last several months. But we never talk about that. That business is all confidential, and as a consequence, you can bring us in as a trusted party. We're not lobbying for either a Republican or Democrat. You can look at my resume and you'll know what party I probably belong to, but that's not our concern. After that, you can contact the committees of jurisdiction if necessary. That may be something of importance to you, especially the House or Senate Budget Committee. I'd kind of keep them in the loop because after all, if it's a complex letter request and if it's going to be a budgetary item at some point, at some future budget, you probably want to let them know that you're working with CBO in case you have any trouble with them, right? That is, any trouble with CBO. So generate a contact at least with the chief economist of the budget committee or the policy director for the budget committee so that they're kind of informed about what you're doing. And I think that would prove to be a useful tool. Those offices that contacted me before the letter was sent in and told me that, okay, we're going to send this letter in, I made a note of that. I brought that information to staff meetings. We were able to help them if they had a roadblock at CBO. Okay, then you write the letter, and who do you write it to? You write it to the director. The letter should go to the director. If it goes to a branch chief, if it goes to Hadley, if it goes to Kling, it's only going to be booted back to you because it wasn't properly submitted. So write your letter to the director. And you know exactly what his name is and what his title is and so forth and so on because you can go to the CBO webpage. You might get a response if you went to a section chief or to an analyst, but it wouldn't be official. And you want to have a letter back to you that's official. Why is that important? A bill cannot be debated on the floor of the House without a CBO score. And in the Senate, that rule also applies. Unless you have suspended the rule in the House or suspended the rule in the Senate. And so you want an official response. You want to be able to say, I have a score from CBO. I have a letter right here. If you have a letter, you could go to a hearing. You can say to the chair when they're doing the mark, here's the score. CBO will say, that's the score, because it's all very official. So write your letter to the director. After that point, the director is going to assign it to a CBO unit. You want to know, where has my letter gone? So that's a follow-up question that you should ask as soon as the letter has been submitted, maybe the next week. Give Jeff Kling or Hadley or Schwegel a call or send an email and says, you've got my letter. Who has it been assigned to? Because you want to know that it has been assigned. It's not just sitting in an inbox somewhere. So begin to audit that process. And I have an audit process here. Develop a timeline, do check-ins, ask for a draft response. It's really good to ask for a draft response so that you can respond unofficially to the draft response rather than having to respond to an official response. Once the official response is out, it's really hard to pull that back. Really hard to pull that back. So then what we have is project management. Manage your timeline, manage your schedules, manage the draft response, and then you'll get the final response. Final response is your goal line. But there's a lot of things you can do prior to that goal line. And just before I hand it off to Parker, let me just sum up what's up here. By the way, you'll get all of our slides, so don't worry about that. This is a process that you can see is absolutely under your control. Don't ever send a letter to CBO and then wait for a response, which I'm going to guess most offices do. Manage the process from the very bright idea beginning and manage it proactively. Identify the staff, identify the loops, manage the timeline, and you will be working with a happier CBO, and you'll get a quicker response and a better response as a consequence of that, especially if you work in the budget committees. and to the extent that they have any time at all to work with you. That's a really important step to take. Okay, so I want to hand it now to Parker, because part of this whole process of working with CBO is better understanding the tools that CBO uses to do this, to do the analysis. It's one thing to say, well, where do they get the numbers? Here are the numbers. Well, you've got to know how they got those numbers, because you may find that it's not quite what you thought you were going to get. And part of the problem may be that the tools they used were not quite the tools they should have used, or maybe you could have an impact on the assumptions that they used when they did their modeling. So I'll let Parker unravel all of that, and this Parker Shepard, who is our senior fellow in economics and runs pretty much all of the macroeconomics. I try to do a little bit, I said pretty much, but really it's all what he's doing. Parker, take it from here.
Thanks, Bill.